were very keen, unlike places like Euston and other stations, traditional stations, where the concourse is disconnected from the trains. You almost don't see the trains. We were keen that people could be associated with the trains. You still see people coming up and having their photograph taken next to trains. You see people having their photograph taken next to bitumen. You see people coming through the link that we created underneath the chambers and saying, wow, when they see the space opening up. This station we're in is the Barlow shed, and the reason is their chief engineer was Barlow. And at the time he was building this railway, others were, Brunel for instance, was building the Great Western Railway and using a completely different railway gauge. So Barlow was crafty. He used that as a good engineer to argue that he needed flexibility. So he got the argument to go complete clear span, and by doing that we have this fantastic arch, which was the biggest ever arch when this was built in the 1860s. He also was clever enough to say to make this commercially viable, and a good engineer needs to be able to help make things commercially viable. And he created the idea, or helped create the idea, that we could bring passengers during the day and beer from the Midlands at night time into desperately thirsty London. So the original street level was an undercroft. There was completely no daylight down there, and it was used purely for bringing beer barrels at night and stacking beer barrels until you take them out and distribute them into the pubs of London during the day. That had been back in the 1800s, and we inherited something that was really derelict and decrepit and actually a nightmare. A whole space underneath the platforms that was a liability with no daylight. And one of the things we felt we needed to do to get the station to have another 120 years of life and value was to open these big slots, which was technically a challenge because the roof, a bit like a Gothic cathedral, was the arch. An arch roof tends to want to spread, and in the case of Gothic cathedrals they stop that with buttresses, and in the case of this station the beams that had been at platform level were holding the arch together. And in cutting these slots, what we've got is a very stiff diaphragm here, this concrete, and these bridges look like they're here for fun and circulation, and that edge margin there looks like it's also for circulation. But if you can imagine the concrete deck coming across from that side, and then these bridges act as a tie to take that load through, and that acts as a big wailing beam down the side, so that all of the arches don't know anything's changed. A creative mind, a lateral mind, it's not just about pulling a slide rule out engineering, it's about actually having the vision of how you can keep something really working, and then using clever analysis to work out where you are in that spectrum of possibility versus impossibility, and try and stay the right side of the line, which is fantastic fun.